And we are back with the fifth and the final segment of the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fifth segment, we are going to be looking at the NFL Power Rankings, just going off of this the ESPN website right now. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it up. It's going to be a little bit quicker than most of the other segments because, again, I did waste a lot of time with the college football segment. I did not expect to waste so much time talking about college football, and I should have known college football is very complicated, especially with the new bracket. But at number 32, we have the Raiders. I don't think the Raiders should be at number 32. I think the Giants, they should be number 32. They did have a bye week, which I guess it makes sense why they're ranked higher than the Raiders, because the Raiders ended up losing after the Dolphins beat them 34-19. And, we see hot seats. Yep, Daniel Jones, he's on the hot seat for the Giants. Of course he is. And that seat is boiling. I think it's worse than boiling. I think it's a forest fire at this point. Like, Daniel Jones, we all know how bad Daniel Jones is. He's terrible, and he should not be the quarterback for the Giants. It's amazing how he was able to retain his job for 6 years, but thank the Lord that the Giants are going to finally move on from him. I think this team should be one of the worst teams in the entire NFL. In fact, they should be number 32. They should not be number 31, but that's just my opinion. Jacksonville, they got absolutely destroyed by the Lions 52-6. Would not be surprised if their head coach ends up getting fired. And their offensive coordinator is apparently on the hot seat. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about that, but there's a lot that's wrong with Jacksonville right now. Would not be surprised if they... I'm actually curious. Do you guys think they're going to use this draft spot on a quarterback? Because Trevor Lawrence, like, even with his time, like, he hasn't lived up to the hype. The Trevor Lawrence hype. I mean, he did make the playoffs and he did lead a huge comeback, but aside from that, this season has been very, very, very disappointing for Jacksonville. And there's a lot of problems going on. I wouldn't be surprised if their head coach ends up getting fired really soon. It could happen any day now, but really no problems with that. Tennessee, they put up a little bit of a fight against the Vikings, but again, not really much of a fight. And the Vikings, they've really surprised a lot of teams and a lot of people and their expectations. I actually have to speed through this because I am running out of time. So I have no real problems with the Titans being at number 29. The Browns, they're a really bad team. They have a really bad quarterback situation. Makes sense that they're ranked at number 28. The Jets being ranked at 27. Again, another team in a bad situation. A team that was expected to be contenders and a team that was expected to be... at least a competent team, at the very least, ends up being less than competent, just shows that they're the casual Jets. The Panthers, they moved up, and, I mean, it makes sense. They did end up beating the Giants in the previous matchup, but again, it's the Giants, so them being ranked at 26 makes sense for them. The Patriots also being ranked at 25 makes sense. They did lose to the Rams, but they did put up a good fight. Drake May, he's making some rookie mistakes, but that's sort of the expectations for him being a rookie. Right now, the team looks a little bit more competent offensively with Drake May at the helm than they did with Jacoby Brissett, and in my opinion, that's a big reason why their season is looking like this right now, because if they ended up starting Drake May from the start and not playing Jacoby Brissett for as long as they did, they'd probably be in a much better spot. Next, the Dallas Cowboys. Makes total sense. How about them boys? I mean, I bet you the Cowboys, after they beat the Giants, everyone thought that it was the Cowboys' year. At least the Cowboys fans thought that it was their year. They've been terrible, and it makes sense that they're at rank number 24. The Bears, they've been really mediocre, and they have been one of the, I wouldn't really say shocking teams because we expect the Bears to be this bad, but Caleb Williams has not really lived up to most of the expectations. I think a big problem with that is the coaching around him, and it makes sense that the coach is on the hot seat. But again, we'll just have to see how Caleb Williams develops. It doesn't matter that he paints his nails. He was a fantastic quarterback in college. The Saints being ranked at number 22. Again, I don't really expect them to be ranked any higher than that. They have a 4-7 record, rather mediocre. They did destroy the Browns, but again, the Browns are a very bad team. And the Dolphins, they're moving up in the rankings. Now they have Tua Tagovailoa, and they still are second in the AFC East. It's just the AFC East is so bad with the Jets and the Patriots dropping a bunch of games. So it makes sense. Will they make the playoffs? Not entirely sure. They'd most likely have to win out. They'd have to win a lot of these games if they want to make the playoffs. The Bengals, they've been rather disappointing. A huge burden of that falls on the defense because Joe Burrow is having an MVP caliber season, but it's just the defense can't really seem to get consistent stops. The Colts, they ended up beating the Jets. Anthony Richardson had a fantastic game-winning touchdown drive, and the team, they sort of answered the call when they needed them to. And I think that, according to reports, benching Anthony Richardson was a good wake-up call for him. So maybe we'll see them ranked a little bit higher. And right now, in their standings, they're 5-6, second in their division. Again, mainly because their division is also really bad. They have the Titans and the Jaguars, who only have 2 wins to show for it in their season. And if they end up winning out, maybe we could see them in the playoffs. We could. Again, it's a very big if, but we could see them in the playoffs if they win their division. Now, next team, the Buccaneers, they're suffering from injuries as well. I believe Mike Evans is going to return, so they might end up getting a boost in their rankings if they end up winning. They've been pretty mediocre in this season, but again, still they're able to make the playoffs because they are really, really close to the Falcons in the NFC South. The Falcons, they're 6-5. And the Buccaneers, again, they recently had a bye week, so they could catch up to the Falcons. It really, really depends on how the season goes. The Falcons being ranked slightly above them makes sense. And, I mean, they just got absolutely destroyed by the Broncos. I have this rule where it's like Kirk Cousins, most of the time, in almost every season that Kirk Cousins plays, he has to be close, like really close, to having a 500 record. If he has over a 500 record, then he's going to lose some games. If he has under a 500 record, he's going to play like the best quarterback ever. And Seahawks, they did beat the Niners, but still, for some reason, the Niners are probably ranked higher than them, which I don't really understand. I mean, they are the Niners, so I guess it makes some sense, but they've been very, very disappointing in this season so far. I'm talking about the Niners, by the way, but the Seahawks, they've been a surprise. I will say that they do get docked a few points for losing to the Giants that one time. Geno Smith has been very, very mediocre in a lot of these games that they've been playing, and his stats as a quarterback are not really that impressive. I mean, I will say that they're just not as impressive as what we've seen from him before. I mean, looking at his stats, he has 11 touchdowns to 11 interceptions, so less than ideal for a quarterback. The Rams staying at number 15 after beating the Patriots. Again, that makes sense, but Matt Stafford had a great game in that one, and we'll see how the rest of their season unfolds. Right now, they are tied for one of the NFC West is very competitive. A lot of the teams, they have the same record in the NFC West, and the Cardinals are leading the charge all the way with a 6-4 record. So we'll have to see how they look in the standings. The Broncos, they get a huge boost for beating the Falcons, and Bo Nix having an incredible game going into this one. He threw for like 4 touchdowns, I believe. It was absolutely incredible. The Niners, dropping only to 13, maybe a little bit too generous. I wouldn't be surprised if the Broncos should be ranked higher than them. And this is a little bit of a disappointing start to the season. I will say that it might be because McCaffrey did not start for a lot of the games. I mean, he's only played 2 of them. But again, he has not been a very good player so far in these games, but we sort of have to ease into it. Deebo Samuel has also been less than mediocre. Brandon Ayuk has also been less than mediocre than what we saw from last year. So again, I don't think this ranking. I think this ranking is a little bit too generous. Houston, they end up destroying the Cowboys, and they are suffering from a lot of injuries, specifically at the wide receiver position. And, I mean, we'll see sort of how their season unfolds. They could end up bottoming out and losing in their division, but right now they lead the division, so don't really have a problem with them being ranked at number 12. The Cardinals, again, they drop despite the fact that they did not play a game, but that makes sense. If you don't play a game, obviously you're going to end up dropping. No problems with them being ranked this high. The Commanders, they lost to the Eagles, a division rival, and makes total sense that they ended up dropping from 7 all the way to 10. They've been a very big surprise in this season. The Chargers, they move up after beating the Bengals, and Again, this Chargers team, the coach, Matt Harbaugh, fantastic, absolutely incredible in his job with the Chargers, has sort of changed the culture from a mediocre team to a winning team. So no real complaints at them being ranked at number 9. The Packers, they ended up beating the Bears. They get moved up, and they're 7-3. Despite being 7-3, they're only 3rd in their division, but their division is very tough, having the Vikings and the Lions. Speaking of the Vikings, okay, they're not ranked higher than Baltimore. It does not make any sense. Baltimore lost to the Steelers. I mean, that's always a stain on Lamar Jackson and his career so far. He's just unable to beat the Steelers. And the Steelers, I'm not surprised that they're winning these games. I mean, I expected them to be positive. I did not expect them to be this positive this early, however. But win is a win. They ended up beating the Ravens by just field goals, so maybe that's why the Ravens dropped so much. And I don't really think that they're a worse team than the Vikings, however. I think the Vikings are worse than the Ravens, but aside from that, they did end up winning against the Titans. Again, a less than mediocre team. The Steelers, they're up here at 5, makes total sense. They're 8-2, and they're just a team that gets wins. They're a team that's able to win the game, and it's like it doesn't matter how they do it, they win. And then the Eagles makes total sense. They're one of the better teams in the entire NFC. They beat the Commanders, and they hold the top spot in the NFC East, so it makes total sense that they're ranked this high. The Bills, surprisingly not being ranked. The Chiefs are still ranked higher, despite the fact that the Bills ended up beating the Chiefs, which makes no sense to me. I think the Chiefs should be ranked at number 3, and the Bills should be all the way over here, but I digress. And of course, the Lions, they have the best record in all of the NFL right now, aside from the Chiefs, who are 9-1 as well. But again, this is sort of the expectation. The Lions, they've been fantastic this season, and beating the Jaguars 52-6 is definitely going to put you in that top spot. But again, I don't think that the Bills should be ranked lower than the Chiefs because they just recently beat the Chiefs. So that's all that I have in this 5th segment, and that is it for the show. Thank you so much for tuning in to the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us. Remember to subscribe to the show, leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. As usual, we love to hear what you guys have to say during the show. Whether it's a hot take, a burning question, we're all ears. So if you really want your comment and or question to get noticed, I recommend using Super Chat. You just click on the $ below the chat box. And if Super Chat's not really your thing, then you can always use the link displayed below the ticker, gsmcpodcast.net. And you can send in your comments and or donations that way. They really help the show. They make it much more interactive between myself and you guys. That's all that I have for you guys today on this podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am your host, Nelson, and as always, take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't